that nobody had touched this industry or targeted women. Do this, take on the big dogs. So we surveyed 2,000 women and the output was HANX. For me, a real pinch me moment was when that very product was stocked in exactly the same boots that I bumped into my boss. Also seeing that has led us to create other products that we know women want. I honestly want HANX to be the safe space that no matter what age, what background, what culture you have, you feel safe.
And we're live. Today we have with us Farah Kabir, who's a co-founder of HANX, which is a sexual and intimate wellness brand designed with women in mind. If you're joining us for the first time, we're the Bay HQ, and we're all about helping British Asians to succeed. I'm your host, Amma, and today we're going to dive into Farah's story. So let's go straight in. When you were growing up, what did you want to be? What were your ambitions?
So apparently I wanted to be a dinner lady.
Nice.
I'm the youngest of four, and I remember seeing all these textbooks that my brothers and sister would have growing up. And apparently when I was 3 or 4, I was my parents saying, "What do you want to be?" And I said, "I want to be a dinner lady because I don't want to read all these textbooks and all the big books that everyone has to grow up and read." So yeah, quite unconventional. But yeah, as I was growing up, I think, traditional Asian families, my dad really wanted me to be a doctor or a dentist. My sister's a dentist, and so I think my dad had this dream of us owning a dentistry empire. But honestly, I didn't know what I wanted to be. I think there was a period of time where I kind of fell into that expectation of going into medicine. I studied, sciences at A-level, but actually up until about 17, 18, I still didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I was pretty good at business and economics. So it was a pretty last minute decision where I changed to study finance and I went to Durham, much to my dad's dismay that I did not go down the dentistry or the medicine route. And yeah, I studied finance at Durham. Still didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew that it was something that I enjoyed more than the sciences. And I'll be really honest, I think even in my 20s, even when I went into my first career in insurance and then to investment banking, I thoroughly enjoyed it and the people side of it, but I never truly knew that was my calling or that's what I dreamed of doing.
I think it's interesting as well because so you get some people come on and say, "Oh, when I was 5 years old, lemonade stand, I always wanted to become an entrepreneur." Yeah. And then the truth is so many of us, I had no idea what I wanted to be at that age either, right? So my A levels were the medicine and dentistry route, so biology and chemistry, and then maths and economics. So you had both options open. I didn't really want to go down the medicine dentistry route, but then you also know the status, like you said there, right? I think one of the good things about finance, economics, it gives you options later on. Mm-hmm. And as you were studying that, as in that career, what was your, did you ever think, oh, one day I want to do my own thing? Or you're just kind of happy on that corporate path for a while?
Yeah, I come from a family of entrepreneurs. So I'm the youngest of 4. My siblings all have their own hustles, main hustles, side hustles, and then their corporate careers as well. And my parents are quite entrepreneurial. So it's always been in the family and in the blood, but I've never wanted to do it myself. So we always get together at Christmas time. And every year there was always a conversation around, Farah, I've seen this commercial property here, or have you thought about investing in this? And this was at the time when I was working at Goldman. And quite honestly, I was quite happy at Goldman. I was quite happy making mistakes at someone else's firm. Whilst I always had an entrepreneurial flair, I didn't quite feel the urge to do anything. And to be honest, I really was enjoying my role and my time there. So I guess, for me, it wasn't that I had to set up a company because I wanted to be an entrepreneur. What happened with HANX was much more organic.
It was almost like you're intentionally not becoming an entrepreneur. Yeah. And you're trying to avoid it. You said you like making mistakes on other people's time. And that's one of the things I think a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah.
It's so much easier. If you make a mistake at a company, right, there's people above you, there's managers, there's somebody else who can deal with it.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things I miss is the escalation point.
Yeah.
So what was it about that entrepreneurship that was putting you off at the beginning?
I'll caveat, I didn't make too many mistakes because there were quite a few people waiting for my role at Goldman. But I think what I really enjoyed is learning how a business functions. And I guess if there was any fear to have, it was that if you set up your own company, where's your guidebook? Where do you start from if you've not worked elsewhere? But for me, like I said, I didn't plan on becoming an entrepreneur. I was quite happy being in finance. I think seeing how hard it is or how difficult it can be and seeing my siblings work incredibly hard, they're not work shy. I was in my early 20s and I thought, well, if I end up doing this, then I'm not going to be able to have a great time or go partying. So I guess it was a lifestyle choice as well at the time.
So you said HANX started organically. What is the story behind HANX?
Yeah.
Why did it begin?
Essentially, around the time, I alongside some of my friends, had come off hormonal birth control. So prescription birth control is very common in girls, and you're often prescribed it from the age of 15 for various reasons, not just for protection. And the side effects were just really weighing me down. So the only option at the time were condoms. And my office on Fleet Street was a couple of doors down from a Boots. And on my lunch break, busy working day, I popped in, picked up my Boots meal deal, things I needed, such as face wipes and a pack of condoms. And my boss was behind me in the queue. And I was absolutely mortified. I had this bright red pack in my hand. He didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. But I was so fearful that he was thinking, this girl is promiscuous. Like, who is she getting up to hanky-panky with on her lunch break? And
is that where HANX comes from, hanky-panky?
Yeah, HANX is actually short for hanky-panky. And I was super embarrassed and then frustrated and then angry. And I kind of thought, look, they may not be for me. They could be for a friend. Like, irrespective, why should I feel embarrassed to take control of my sexual health or any other area of my health? And I was explaining this to Sarah, who's a really good friend of mine. We grew up together. She's a gynaecology doctor. And at the time, she was treating women in STI clinics. And she was seeing a rise of women coming in, hard to treat STIs, irritations from products that they were using with interesting ingredients. And dating apps had just kicked off. So condoms are needed more than ever. And we actually thought of the name HANX that night. And we put our heads together and we thought, this is crazy. Let's set up condoms with women in mind. And then, of course, we woke up the next day and we were like, are we actually crazy? Are we going to do this? And we did. We got so incredibly excited at the prospect that nobody had touched this industry or targeted women. So it's been a male-dominated industry for decades with one or two big players in each region. And so I think there was a little bit of naivety on our part, thinking that we could do this, take on the big dogs. But that's what gave us the drive, the gumption, the excitement behind spending all our evenings and weekends building this proposition. Yeah,
because obviously you said like you were working at Goldman at the time, and then you had this big idea on the side, and you're trying to balance the two, right?
Yeah.
And how did you do that with Sarah, right? Because when there's two of you, and obviously she was working full time as well. How did you manage the early stage? Because I guess some people right now that might be listening thinking, I want to start a company with a friend of mine. Yeah. But then we're both busy. Like, how did you get that off the ground?
Yeah, and the funny thing is a lot of people said, don't go into business with your friend. I couldn't go into business with anyone else but Sarah. We were best friends. We're very similar in a lot of ways, but we're very different as well. You know, Sarah was out there delivering babies, saving lives. I'm just an Excel monkey on a spreadsheet in corporate, but the two go hand in hand very well. So we have complementary skill sets. And honestly, there's no rule or guidebook to be an entrepreneur. So it was literally a bashing of heads together and being like, here are all the things we need to do, whether it was researching manufacturers, setting up a survey monkey to find out if people wanted the product. It was basically an ongoing task list that we would divvy up and share the workload on. And until it got to a point where we thought, oh my God, this has legs, like we should do it. And in our mind, we were thinking, we have nothing to lose right now. You know, at the time, neither of us had kids or dependents or anything stopping us, other than the dismay of our parents, the fact that we'd invested our life savings into Johnny's, that should have gone into something else. Yeah, we thought, why not take a risk? We can always go back to our day jobs.
You mentioned there about the survey side of things and like getting the information, the research. How did you go about that? Like, what was your process? Or did you have like you said, there's no guidebook for this, right?
Yeah.
But let's say somebody's thinking, okay, I want to test out an idea before I really put my time into it. What would you recommend there? Like, what did you do that maybe they could replicate?
Yeah, I mean, you might think you have a fantastic idea just like we did, but, you know, that's fairly one-sided. And, you know, what we want to do is something called the mum test. So, you know, there's a book on it as well. And we want to see whether our ideas stuck and if other people are interested, because there's also a reason why no one else has tackled this market. There's got to be a big reason. So we're missing a trick here, and there's only so much naivety will get you through. So we surveyed 2,000 women. So what we did is we set up a survey on SurveyMonkey at the time, asking them if they were to buy condoms, what would they look like, feel like, what's stopping them, you know, what are the barriers, and the output was HANX. And having Sarah's NHS network really helped. That's what enabled us to get so many survey results. And that's what drove us to creating our first product, because we were able to get the feedback that women care about what they put in and on their bodies. They want a brand that is transparent with their ingredients, a product that aligns with beauty standards so that it's not garishly packaged or promoting a man's conquest if it fell out of your handbag. And that's what led us to create our first hero product.
Again, like creating the product at the beginning, right? You said you're researching manufacturers, you're doing this kind of stuff. I guess obviously you got, like Sarah's a gynecology background, so you can make sure you got the right ingredients, things like that. But even going from the ideation to actually creating a product, how is that feeling, like getting that first product in your hand? And then now, okay, we're going to try and sell this, right? Because it's real, right? Once you've had that first one produced.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy and it was a bumpy ride. I'm super impatient, as is Sarah, and things took a lot longer than we had anticipated. But I think a real pinch me moment was when we had the product in hand, and also when we got it into retail. Like, for me, a real pinch me moment was when that very product was stocked in exactly the same boots that I bumped into my boss. And that was such a wow moment. I was really emotional. And yeah, it was a great experience. Even now, I think back on that. But I think on the daily, we do get these pinch me moments. Like, even the fact that customers will email us saying, your lube changed my life, or it helped me with my pregnancy. It's like, you're actually having an impact on other people's lives, which is crazy. If I can do that for just one person, like, I made it. So yeah, constant pinch me moments.
It's like you had like this journey, right, where everything's really exciting, but at some point to make this really go where you want it to go, you're gonna have to go full time. What was that turning point? What was the moment you decided, yeah, this is it?
Yeah, so we spoke to as many people that would listen to us. You know, they often say when you have an idea, like, oh, don't talk about it until it's fully ready, or, you know, you might have evil eye or whatever. We did the opposite. We were like, we want to talk to as many people as we can about this because it's free consulting and someone will know someone. And during that time, we spoke to everyone from marketeers to investors to people in VC. And, you know, we had strong traction in that capacity. So not only did we have 2,000 survey people who were early adopters and customers that were willing to purchase this product, we also had interest from people like angels. So people we were talking to who were like, okay, if you can get this off the ground, if you can get the product live, if you can get into retail, we'll invest. And so for us, it was like, well, this is a no-brainer. And we also have to put our skin in the game. There's no way it's sustainable doing the tier ones.
And getting into retail, right? Because neither of your backgrounds really has that retail background. So how did you even go about that? Like, how did you think, okay, I guess, did you start with boots or did you start smaller? What was your strategy?
So we just didn't take no for an answer. It was just not possible. The very fact that we had quit our well-paid jobs and like the cultural background of going to a Muslim Bangladeshi family and saying, I'm going to start selling condoms, there's no option to fail. Like you're fully in. So we didn't have backgrounds in retail, but, you know, I worked at Red Bull during university where I was driving like a Mini with a can on the back. I'd learned a bit about, you know, the sales side, and we just continued to reach out to retailers. Even if they said no, we would keep them abreast of the company. We would give them exciting updates and just trying to build that relationship and that rapport with them. There's nothing worse than going to a retailer, they say no, and then you reach back out 6 months later without any kind of nurturing of that relationship. And that's what we worked really hard on doing.
Now you've got into retail and it's all expanding. And I guess, like you said, like you've had to go through this process of sharing your idea with people, getting all this feedback. Was there any moments where you doubted this? Like you said you couldn't fail.
There were always moments of, again, naivety where we thought it would be easier. And it wasn't. So like getting into retail was incredibly challenging. Getting online was incredibly challenging. We launched and then a major payment provider pulled the plug on us because we're in a taboo arena. We're in what's classed as sex tech. And there's a lot of corporates who have these vice clauses that say you cannot participate or invest or whatever in adult content, even though we weren't adult content. It's technically a woman's health need. And so we've had constant challenges around that. And I think fundraising is another one as well. That's been really tough that we're constantly learning about. But we always make mistakes. And that's okay. Like, I really want to emphasize the fact that it's okay to make mistakes because you learn from them. You know, and I think had we not had mistakes along the way or, you know, a difficult journey, I don't think we'd be where we are today.
You mentioned naivety a few times.
Yeah.
And just picking up on that, I think it's good to have that naivety in some ways, because if you didn't have that naivety, you might not have tried. And because you tried, then you learn more. Because like I said, it's always going to take longer than you expect. But sometimes having that excitement and that enthusiasm that you're going to get it done quicker enables you to actually get moving.
Yeah.
Because why did you do it and so many other people didn't? I said, it's a great idea. Like, it's needed by so many people, but other people might just not believe that they could do it. And because you believed in yourself and you had the background and the skills to do that, you went ahead and did it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, you can tell the idea to a million people. Are they going to put in the work? Are they going to put in the effort to make it happen like you did? And like the journey since then, right? So you've got into stores. What's happened since then? What have been some of the biggest milestones for you? You said you get the emails all the time, but like what's the growth been like?
It's been a bumpy ride, to be honest. So we've had a very clear vision, you know, whilst HANX was born out of the idea of creating condoms for women, quite quickly we realised there's a gap in the wider women's health market. And, you know, having Sarah as a co-founder and a gynae doctor, she sees the issues firsthand. And so quite quickly after launching condoms and lubricants, we realised there was a real opportunity here to connect the milestones of women's health. So all the way from your first period to your first time having sex, your first child, menopause and beyond. And the way we see it, there is no one brand that's doing that. But we couldn't go gung-ho with all these products as a new brand in a very tricky and emotional market because, you know, using condoms is based on trust and authority. If they don't work, you either get pregnant or an STI. So we spent the first 2 to 3 years really honing in on the sexual health market, really making a name for ourselves, getting on shelf next to the big players because that solidifies trust and authority, and building a community. And that community is really what's led us and allowed us to build these other products that fill that vision for us. From day dot, we've had a community of these 2,000 early adopters. We've got a chat room called HANX Live. It's a bit like Mum's Net without your mum, but where you can freely ask for advice, recommendations on anything around sex, health, relationships. And also seeing that has led us to create other products that we know women want. So actually, since the condoms and the lubricant, we developed a range of supplements. So we developed Libido Lift for women, which is the first in its market. You know, you've got Viagra for men, but you don't really have anything for women that is natural based, and also menopause and pregnancy supplements. Again, gynae backed, doctor approved. I think we're one of the very few brands in women's health here that actually have a gynae who is leading on these products. And we've since also gone into prescription birth control because, again, looking at our community, choice is everything. Not everyone will use condoms, but actually to allow the choice and the education element is important. So we built a prescription platform where you can get over 20 types of birth control that you would get from your GP. You can get directly from us dispatched same day, alongside things like the morning after pill and vaginal health treatment. So we're really trying to build a robust suite of products and services that support women at any age, whether it's your mother, your aunt, your sister, or yourself.
You mentioned about the community, right? And I guess that's been such a huge, important part of growing the business and getting more people involved. How did you go about that? So you said you've got the Mum's Net for like sex and health, but how did you test out different ideas? Or like, how did you think about like how are we going to get people together? Because obviously a lot of people might not be comfortable talking about this in public forums or with their name attached to it or something like that. How did you get those people together? How did you pull them in? And once they're obviously in, how do you retain them? How do you keep them engaged?
It's been a long-term play. You can't build a community overnight because consumers are not fickle either. You need to build that level of originality and authenticity. So it's not something we set out to do from day one, but we knew that those who interact with the brand are going to be the ones that lead a lot of what we want to do in future. So it definitely wasn't an overnight thing. And equally, again, because we're technically classed as adult, we had so many issues even going on Instagram, on Facebook, setting up a Facebook group, like we'd constantly get banned. So we had to think outside the box. And I think, honestly, you know, we've got a huge community now, but that took us 5 or 6 years to build. And I think what's really helped build a community is building things people want. Like, you know, if we were to do condoms and lubricants and then go into fashion, we know our community wouldn't really be interested in fashion. So it's really understanding what they want. And we've been able to do that by also creating content they want. So one of the things we really want to do at HANX is dismantle shame. Like if there's one thing we do, it's that. Because where do you go to for things like sex education, advice on relationships? And so by offering people content, there's a lot of blogs that we have, in the absence of them wanting to use condoms initially, you're giving customers what they want in a different way. And so by continuing that thread of not only products, but content, I think that's helped us build an authentic community, but it's definitely not happened overnight.
How has your role changed over time? Because I know now you built a personal brand yourself as well, right? And both of you are like faces of the company and you both put out your own information and like really help to tackle that shame yourselves as well. How's your role adapted over time?
Yeah, I think it's so funny you say personal brand because I've never seen it that way. But Emily, who manages brand, says that has happened. And I think a lot of it is organic because people are genuinely interested in founder stories. My role is still a little bit of everything, I'll be really honest. So when Sarah and I first started the company, I was more focused on finance, fundraising, sales. Sarah was on the product development side, marketing, etc. And then we've built out a team, but we are still such a lean and small team. So it is a little bit of everything. This sort of stuff is lovely and nice to do, but the reality is this represents about 2% of what we have to do in the day-to-day. So a little bit of everything, but to be honest, my focus is still fundraising and sales, and that will continue to be my focus because of my background.
You mentioned that you built a little team as well. How did you get those people involved? How big is the team now? And
yeah,
I guess, are you looking to hire anybody else at the moment? Maybe somebody listening?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a team of 6 full-time. So we're tiny. People do reach out and they're like, they thought we were much bigger. But it's important, certainly for Sarah and myself, that we grow slow but bring in the right talent with a good cultural fit. And culture, again, is something that doesn't happen overnight. You build that over time. In terms of our first hire, we knew that this was going to be a brand play. We didn't want to do anything that Durex were doing. So whatever that brand was doing, we do the complete opposite. So branding and marketing, tone of voice is really important. So that was our first key hire. I think it's really difficult making your first hires because you never know whether to go more senior or junior, but you train them up. And ultimately, what we've learned is we need people smarter than Sarah and myself. We need people smarter and in their field experts. And funny enough, the two people who have been with us the longest, we've actually met at a co-working space. So Emily, who we love dearly, who heads up brand and marketing at HANX, she started at Huckletree, which is a co-working space here in London. And her first day at Huckletree was the first time she'd met us when we were 2-3 months into HANX. So she's followed the journey from day one. And has now been working with us for a couple of years. But having the people that we've hired that worked really well are people that have followed the brand before and actually are passionate about women's health and not just because they want a role.
And you said you're now focusing on fundraising a lot yourself, right? And I know that you've raised a significant amount of capital. And what is that capital going towards? You're raising at the moment as well, right? Mm-hmm. Is that going towards R&D or what's the fundraising requirements? Yeah.
So we are predominantly a consumer brand still, so a lot of it will go into stock and inventory. We've actually launched 4 different products this year, so we've done a lot of product development behind the scenes. But ultimately, we're at the point where we want to scale the business, and so growing the team is super important to us. We also have significant traction in the US. So whilst we're one of the only challenger brands in all the major retailers here, we've had interest from US retailers. And so the fundraiser is really going to help support building that team out and helping us scale the business, both online and in retail.
And what's the dream? If you had no barriers, what do you want HANX to get to? Where do you want to see this through?
I honestly want HANX to be the safe space that no matter what age, what background, what culture you have, you feel safe and comfortable coming to us for education, content or products. And so what's really beautiful about our brand is when we started HANX, we thought our core audience was 25-year-old Olivia, we called her. And actually, when we look at our demographics now, over 40% of our purchases are men, and we've never targeted men. We have a core audience of 25 to 35, but a growing audience of 45 plus. And so that's really beautiful for me. Not only are we building out a vision that connects the milestones of women's health, but we're accessible for different women and different ages. So as I mentioned earlier, I want it to be a safe space that you can come to, whether it's for your sister, your aunt, your mum, or yourself. Almost like, you'd have that friend who'd have a really cool big sister who'd seem to know all the stuff. I want it to be that space.
And as you said, there's social media platforms have banned you in the past and things like that. What's some of the misconceptions you think sometimes people have about HANX that you'd like to you've got this space now to challenge it and show maybe it's people get the wrong impression, how you're different to that?
Well, firstly, for a long time, they think that me and Sarah are just the condom girls and that we're just a sex brand. And we're way more than that, Yes, condoms is our hero product, but it was a starting point for us in really changing behaviours, disrupting a sale category and building a movement where people feel confident and safe to talk. We really, I'm not lying when I say we get DMs daily about people talking in great detail about how they feel and what the products have done to them. I don't think that happens with other household major names. There is no authentic relationship between the consumer and the brand, whereas I think we've been able to build that and make a name for ourselves in that space, and to do it in a very tongue-in-cheek but not crass or rude, like there's a fine line, in a real and relatable way, I think has really gotten us to where we are today.
Yeah, and as you said there, because obviously on the HANX website and the About Us and all that kind of stuff, I think you even say on your website the condom girls and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it's being able to play off that, because like you said, it's lots of people in this space, they worry about the shame element of those kind of things. Whereas if you can do, like, confidently say who you are, and like I said, it's just health at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, it is.
There's nothing wrong with health.
No. Yeah.
And as you expand further, right, it's going to be, you're going to grow a bigger team, all those kind of things. What's most exciting for you, though? What's the thing that you're like, I can't wait for this? Like
I said, I come from a Bangladeshi Muslim background where it is very taboo to be talking about things like this, and that there is shame in it. I will be very excited when I can see that there are other communities like, Bangladeshi Muslim communities where they feel comfortable. I'll give you an anecdote. So Sarah used to teach sex education in schools alongside being a doctor, and there was a school in East London that she taught in, predominantly girls' school. It was a girls' school, 80% Muslim. The majority of that class had been signed out of sex education by their parents. And that really scares me, because the only way you're going to educate yourself is if you know your body inside out. And so you need to be informed and know what your rights and your choices are and what that means for you. And so that's just, I can only speak to a culture that I have known, but that's just an example. There are lots of other communities and cultures that may prevent their children getting from education in certain areas like this. So yeah, I hope that I can help other communities in a shame-free manner and hopefully not cause any trouble to different communities along the way.
So it's been really good to talk to you today. We're going to need to move to the quick-fire questions now. So the first one is, who are 3 British Asians that you'd love to shout out that you think are doing incredible work?
Anissa Osman-Brisson, I love her. I think she's great. She writes really well. She's a great journalist, and she's recently been focusing on brown bodies. So lots of great stories on her Substack, so you should follow her. Poppy J of Brown Girls Do It Too. A lol a minute. She's very funny. And I like what she's doing about smashing the taboos there. And then a third one, I think this is personal because I love her food, Asma Khan of Darjeeling Express. I love the fact that, her kitchen was female-only refugees. Like, what a way to give back. And her food is incredible. I urge you to go to Darjeeling Express if you haven't already tried it.
I don't think I've been there yet. I might actually have to go myself.
Very yummy.
And the next bit is if people listening now want to reach out to you, reach out to HANX, or where can they find you? What can they reach out about?
Yeah. So you can find us on all social media platforms, unless we get banned temporarily, which hasn't happened for a while. It's HANX Official, HANX, on various platforms. And you can slide into our DMs. Like I said, we do get a whole host of people asking questions, advice and recommendations, and we want to smash shame and not make that a taboo. So you can contact us, and we have a chat room called HANX Life. Again, so that is, it can be anonymous. You can use any username. You don't have to declare any details about yourself, and you can post anonymously on there. And it generally tends to be the community that advocate and come together and provide recommendations or advice.
And is there anything that the audience might be able to help you with or help out HANX with?
Tell your friends about HANX. Tell your friends about HANX. We are a women's health movement. We're not alienating any communities or any people. We want people to feel proud and to take control of their bodies and the health behind that.
So again, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you.
Have you got any final words to the audience?
If you have an idea, I would trust your gut, go with it. It's got your best interest at heart. Have a healthy helping of naivety, but also take a calculated risk. Really understand the market. If your idea is great, find out why it hasn't happened yet and be honest with yourself on that.
Hello everyone. Thank you so much for listening. It means a huge amount to us. And we don't think you realise how important you are. Because if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, if you leave us a 5-star review, it makes a world of difference. And if you believe in what we're trying to do here, to inspire, connect and guide the next generation of British Asians, if you do those things, you can help us achieve that mission, and you can help us make a bigger impact. And by doing that, it means we can get bigger guests, we can host more events, we can do more for the community. So you can play a huge part. So thank you so much for supporting us.